Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Are you sure they can't hear us? I clicked the stream. Okay. Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We will be starting in a few. We haven't started yet. We'd like to apologize about the inconvenience of the previous session. Dr. Muhammad was joining us from Egypt, and the Wi-Fi was a bit bad. Usual Wi-Fi issues. Thank you for your patience, everyone, but we resolved the issue. everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We'll start in a few. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. Uh, Once again, would like to apologize about the Wi-Fi issues. Dr. Muhammad was joining from Egypt, and we all know the Wi-Fi situation. I believe you can all hear me properly. All right, so let's kick off. So, as promised, during this very light session, we're gonna be diving into knowledge graphs. You've already dove into knowledge graphs with Dr. Amar, and we'll just be working on a very simple hands-on application, how to build a very tiny knowledge graph just to get you guys started, and then we'll be wrapping up and discussing the project a bit. So stick tight. Now, a little bit about me. I've been in the software development industry for around 3 years and so now, and I'm also an AI research engineer, which means I'm basically both into development and research. It's a new field, R&D, not really that new. If anyone would like to know any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I've attached my socials at the end of the PowerPoint. Regarding my background, I have a master's degree in computer science, and I'm currently pursuing my second master's degree in data intelligence. I'm also a leader, and I've been supporting the tech community and multiple initiatives and NGOs. And you've all joined this bootcamp, and it is a collaboration between GDG on campus, Lebanese University, Code with Sarah, and NEU AI Club. So I'm actually the founder of Code with Sarah, and so far we have 900 plus community members. Now, you might be wondering, how does a my PowerPoint presentation has 78 slides because I'm babbling and just reading stuff. Well, that's actually not true. Don't worry. It's not 78 slides. But I believe that has caught your attention right now. So we're not going to be diving into all theoretical stuff, actually. It's going to be a fun session, I promise. Now that caught your attention right now, I'd like to actually play a little game with you guys just to break the ice a bit. So feel free to drop in the answers in the YouTube chat box. I'm reading them from another device. Don't worry about that. So if you were given the choice, would you rather memorize enough but not understand to actually pass your exam? I believe most of you are university students or even high schoolers. Or would you deeply understand a certain concept, apply it to real life, make connections, and, well, maybe still fail your exam? I'm gonna wait a few seconds just to give you guys chance to type in your answers in the chat box before actually digging into our session. All right, so Hassan is saying he prefers the second option. So does Zali. Okay. Hanina as well. Okay, cool. So I believe everyone here prefers the second option. Could you guys elaborate on that? Why would you go with the second option and not the first option? All right, we have a bunch of more people actually choosing the second option as well. Okay, second by after all that I shouldn't fail my exam. Okay, that's a great perspective. Yes, Hussein, indeed, our education system fails us, but that doesn't have to be the way. Okay, so I believe the majority of you guys would like to go with the second option. And I totally agree with you because making connections is everything. We're not here to just swallow information, go do the test and get a certain grade, or just learn that concept, read the docs about the latest update, the latest software, the latest framework released, go and just build something, develop something without actually understanding. That is not right. And learning is actually a whole journey. You have to make connections between everything. And luckily, that is the case with AI. So far, you've been seeing we dove into data science, machine learning, and we also dove into deep learning. And today, we dove into graphs, which is a new niche, a new field. We have a lot of audience joining here from Lebanon. And let me tell you, there aren't many people here in Lebanon that are actually into graphs. It's a new entire niche, somehow, not really, but it's worth checking out. And for those of you that joined the session with Dr. Ammar Mhanna, it was such an interesting session, and we're gonna be building up upon that session by a simple hands-on, very light application. So making connections is everything, whether you were in college, whether you were even working, or even diving into a new concept, anything. And specifically with AI, making connections is everything. Now, unfortunately, many of us, whether you were a developer, engineer, student, whatever, even employees in certain big companies, we've been focused lately on being users of applications. We've been users of AI. Sure, you've tried to build a rack system for those of you joining us with some advanced background. you've been using AI, but you haven't been trying to actually make sense of it fully, make connections between everything. How does this connect with that? So I really do encourage you to think deeper beyond just using anything. And knowledge graphs actually are all about making connections. But before diving into knowledge graphs, let's talk a bit about data. So you've heard the term data before, and we all know any AI model is 80% data and 20% writing code, writing the algorithm, having the final model, and all of the AI part. But there is a strong emphasis on data. Data is everything. If you have biased data, you would have a biased model. So garbage in, garbage out, I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with this term, but we're not here to talk about this today. And let's actually types of data. So not all data is created equal. We actually have several types of data. We have the unstructured data, and this is literally everything you see around you, from images, text, audio, PDFs, etc. And usually, unstructured data is very hard to process, but it's rich in insights. So we need to do a lot of work there because unstructured data literally has gold. And we also have another type, which is semi-structured data. Now, I'm pretty sure you're all joining from a tech background, so you must followed with, let's say, HTML a bit, XML, JSON. So this is actually a form of unstructured data. It usually has tags and keys, but it is still somehow messy. Like if you weren't writing code in a proper way, your code would turn out to be messy. Regardless, it is still semi-structured data. It's not fully structured. So, okay, Sarah, you dove into unstructured data and semi-structured data, but why do I care? Well, we also have structured data, but most of the data that we usually work in, it's usually not ready. We cannot go and be like, oh, I want to build a model to classify if someone has diabetes or not. Okay, we can't just go and get the data and just start building the model and writing the algorithm of the machine learning model, then training it on whatever data we have, and then ending up with any ML model, for example. That's definitely not the case. And you actually saw that on day one of the bootcamp, where we dove into data along with Sarah Yassin. She walked you through the steps of cleaning and organizing data, how to transform it. We even did some feature engineering, stuff like that. So we were cleaning the data and making it in a ready format for us to go and write the algorithm and then end up with a machine learning model. So what we usually do when we're building any AI model or something, we're trying to make the data structured, because when data is structured, it's easier to deal with. And if the data is easier to deal with, if it's organized, cleaned, and everything, then your model would perform properly. So we dove into unstructured data, semi-structured data, and they are a mess to deal with. And then now we're talking about structured data. So as you can see, that's a snippet from day one, session 2 with Sarah, where you were working on cleaning a data set and, the entire data science life cycle somehow. And to put it more in simple definitions, structured data is basically any tabular data in the format of rows and columns. You might be hearing about this term for the first time. What is she talking about? I thought data is just data. We don't have something like, structured data and stuff. No, you've actually saw structured data before, and it's literally in the CSV format, SQL tables, Excel, etc. And usually we use structured data as an input for any AI model. So I'm pretty sure you've all seen structured data before. But we have data. Data can be unstructured, can be structured, can even be semi-structured. But that doesn't mean that a structured data is meaningful. And what do we actually mean by meaningful? You recall when we were saying we need to make connections, like we can't just say, okay, I have this data, let's go build the model. No one bothers to dive beyond that and actually discover the connections within the different data features that we have, right? So when we stop doing that, our data, now that must be a personal preference, but I would say that our data stops being meaningful because everything around us is all about diving and making sense and making connections. That's how you ensure anything really ends up meaningful. So we have data and we have knowledge. I've been babbling about knowledge graphs. You must attended Dr. Ammar's knowledge graphs session where he actually dove into graphs and knowledge graphs and stuff, right? So we actually have something called data and we have something called knowledge. So as you can see here, we have the data, feather, cough, Bob. Okay, what did I understand from that? I just threw it in the AI model and told the AI model, okay, I want you to predict if someone has fever, for example. Okay, why? Because they cough. Like, this is just one tiny example. Okay, that's what the AI model is actually doing. But what if we go beyond that and actually try to make sense of that, make connection? Okay, Bob has a fever. Maybe he has a flu. Okay, he's coughing. So we're trying to make sense of what we have. We're not just looking at data as in, okay, that's data. No, we're trying to draw connections and make sense. So we try to connect ideas, build relationships. Sometimes we have very complex relationships. That is just one tiny example. And it gets even far more complex. And as Dr. Ammar mentioned, a lot of big companies use graphs. So it's pretty important to actually look beyond what you're actually seeing. I have data, but why do I care about the data if I'm just going to end up, okay, just using it to build a model, make a prediction, and end up being a user of that? No, you have to be curious enough to dive beyond that and make decisions, relationships, and stuff. So feel free to interrupt at any time and drop in your answers in the chat box, by the way. Happy to answer any questions. Now, I believe you probably made sense of what data is, what knowledge is, different types of data, and why do most people, okay, we all want to get a job or an internship, so we settle for, let's say, being a user of certain framework, software, whatever it is. Though I am against that, I always encourage people to be innovative, to be curious, to dive even more. Like, it's not just enough to know how to deal with APIs, how to vibe code or whatever it is. That's totally not enough. And in the long term, you will actually realize that. So we've talked about data, we've talked about knowledge. Knowledge is basically data with meaning and connections. And Facebook, by the way, uses knowledge graphs. Google search engine, actually in 2012, they kicked off the knowledge graph thing and they started using it ever since. So I'm telling you, it's not something new, but I'm pretty sure that it is the first time probably many of you hear about the term knowledge graphs or graphs in general. It's often not too much spoken of, but in the upcoming few years, I anticipate that it's going to be a very hot topic. So, data is the fuel, and knowledge is the engine, as we've been saying before. And that perfectly makes sense. And I'd like to note here, did you actually know that knowledge graphs are often fed into very big AI models? You all use ChatGPT daily, pretty sure of that. And usually, knowledge graphs are fed into ChatGPT. Many of the big softwares out there, at their base, there is knowledge graphs. We feed them knowledge graphs because they have connections within them. So it's much better than just feeding the model structured data or whatever it is. So moving on, what are knowledge graphs? You've seen that before, but let's just recap a bit. It's a smart way to connect facts. It's built using nodes, which are things, and edges, which are relationships. Now, for those of you with computer science background, pretty sure you've all seen that in your data structures and algorithms course when you dove into BFS or DFS or graphs and undirected graphs and stuff like that. But if you haven't, then don't worry. We'll be actually going over the code in a bit, and I'm going to be explaining to you everything. But essentially, nodes and edges literally just connect. Actually, think of this as an edge, and this is the node. So nodes are basically the circles, and edges are like what's connecting them, right? So we have nodes and we have edges. And by the way, we have several types of graphs. Knowledge graphs is just one of them. And even within knowledge graphs, we also have types as well. So they're really important, and I encourage everyone to dive into them further. And as mentioned, they basically help machines understand how things are related, because we care about the relationship between things and not just data as in data, right? So this is an example that I always like to use. So if you've been attending the last 2 days, we dove into data science, machine learning, deep learning, whether it was a workshop or a hands-on seminar, and you're gonna be diving into machine learning and deep learning again with emphasized hands-on workshops. So don't worry if you didn't grasp many of the concepts, because we're gonna be diving into them again. That's actually the top of the iceberg. That's not what AI is about. Even Gen AI, by the way, to me personally, I consider Gen AI to be here. So you're basically at the top of the iceberg. As you dig in deep and dive deeper, there is several topics and several concepts within, I'm gonna say, the tech field, as in computer science and everything as a whole, and AI as a whole. Those are just some examples. Obviously, we have plenty more, but we actually have optimization theory, graph theory, topology, information theory, and many, many, many more. And if you're attending this session and you attended the previous session, you notice that we sort of dove into graph theory. Now, I believe everyone is like, oh my God, what is information theory? What is topology? What is combined? I don't know what. So what is optimization theory even? Pretty sure that not all of you heard of those terms before. You thought AI is, okay, data science, let's go and visualize the data, or build a simple model using classification or regression, for example. Or maybe let's take it to the next level and fiddle a bit with deep learning. Or, oh, I want to dive into Gen AI next. So that's the tip of the iceberg, actually. We have far beyond. And as someone who's in the research industry, usually people who are in the research industry or academia actually get into those. I'm not going to say all, because essentially what you're trying to do is You dive into a specific niche, maybe fiddle a bit with several topics, and then figure out the one that you enjoy the most and maybe end up working on research in that area or pursuing your PhD or something. So, as mentioned, that's the tip of the iceberg. And don't go crazy just yet. It's actually pretty simple. And within the next few years, as I've mentioned, graph is going to be a very hot topic. I hope I didn't shock some of you and babble them a lot. So now that we've introduced knowledge graphs a bit and maybe recapped a bit about the flow of the first 2 days in the bootcamp, I'd actually like you guys to scan the QR code, or the moderators will be dropping the link in the chat box. Please feel free to open the Google Colab link and just make a copy and try to follow along, okay? So we're gonna be working on a very simple knowledge graph, very tiny knowledge graph actually. We're gonna be building a tiny knowledge graph, and then after that we're gonna be discussing the project, talking a bit about the giveaway, and the surprises are at the end basically. So let me stop sharing for a second. Okay. So if you open the Google Colab, I believe it will take you to here. So just click on File and save a copy in Drive, and it will automatically open in a new tab. Okay, I'm gonna wait for like 30 seconds till everyone follows along. And then we will kick things off and go through the code. So I'm gonna give you guys 30 seconds somehow, and we'll start discussing the code. Are you guys following up all right? Amazing, amazing. Glad to hear. Okay, so let's resume and actually go through the code. So we all know English. I'm hoping that no one that's French educated joined us today. Okay, regardless, can you all see my screen? I'm not sure if you are all able to see my screen and the code that I'm sharing. Let me try again. Okay, I believe you're all able to see my screen properly now. Okay, amazing, amazing. So you can now guys see the screen of the code. Okay, cool. So as mentioned, click on File and then click on Save a Copy in Drive. So you're all joining from Google accounts, and it would make a copy in your Google Drive, and it will open in a new tab, and you can follow along and even try to edit the code. Regarding this link, I believe Dr. Muhammad dove into what Google Colab is, and also Sarah as well. So I'm not gonna go over what Google Colab is. But the thing about Google Colab, it's extremely flexible. So if you have a bad laptop and you need to build any AI model or just build anything somehow heavy. I'm not gonna say heavy because sometimes you have to upgrade to the paid version and stuff. Google Colab is your go-to, and I always encourage everyone to work in the cloud. Anyways, so we're gonna be building a mini knowledge graph, and I'm gonna assume you're all familiar with what is an SVO, which is subject, relationship, object. Or sometimes we call the relationship verb. Here specifically, we're saying he paints posters. So we have he as the subject, paints as the verb, posters as the object. And what is the relationship between he and the posters? The relationship is that he paints the posters. Now we can add on that and build on that and maybe write a paragraph and then say the poster is pink, for example. So we will be able to deduce or make a connection or a relationship that he was painting using pink color. So you see the flow, and the more you add into it, the complex it gets. But this is, of course, just one tiny example. So we have an SVO, or you can call it subject relationship object. They're both the same, but people use those terms interchangeably. So this is just an example. Feel free to just follow up. So our knowledge graph will be somehow similar, I'm gonna say, but let's start by talking about what did we import here. So, when you're working with Python, you need to install certain stuff and then import them at the top of your code, specifically if you were building any AI model, basically, or using any library or module or something. You have to import them at the top. And we just literally did that. And by the way, the reason why we did not install them here is because Google Colab automatically has certain stuff pre-installed, so you don't need to install anything. This is why I'm telling you it's really great for beginners to work with, and it's extremely flexible. So I expect you guys, when you're working on your projects or something, we have project at I'm not gonna say at the end of the bootcamp, because technically you're gonna start getting to know each other and joining teams today and tomorrow, so within those 2 upcoming days. But I would urge you to use Google Colab. Anyways, what we're importing actually is 2 Python libraries. As you can see, we have the NetworkX, and this is what we're gonna be using to create and manipulate our graph here. And what do I mean by manipulating and creating the graph? We all know that a graph is made up of nodes and edges, as I've discussed earlier. So this one right here is gonna help us do that. And then we have the matplotlib, and I believe you guys have seen that in the session with Sarah, but basically what we're gonna be using it for is to actually draw the graphs, because we need to see what we built, right? Like, okay, coding is boring if we don't see the outcome, if we don't see the output and what we're actually building. All right, now next up, what we're doing here, and if you're not coming from no coding background, then try your best to follow up and feel free to drop in your answers in the chat box. So here the magic begins actually. So we're defining knowledge triples, okay? And what do we mean by knowledge triples? As I've mentioned, here we're considering the triples to be subject, relationship, object, or even call it verb. They can be of any type of triple depending on your context and depending on the type of knowledge graph you're working with. But we're actually just taking the simplest example here. Okay, so as you can see, each line here is a fact. Alice has disease, flu. Okay, so I can know and deduce, okay, I have a fact. The fact is that Alice has flu. Bob has COVID-19. Bob is coughing. COVID-19 has a symptom of smell. So notice what I did here is I wrote certain facts here, okay? And those facts are structured knowledge here, okay? And this is what's gonna be powering our knowledge graph, okay? Now, you can define any set of facts depending on the type of knowledge graph you're working with. Next up, after we define the facts, which are our knowledge base, let's say, okay, we have to build the graph. This is just a simple example, by the way. I'd like to note, usually you can get them in a different way. It depends, but we're just keeping everything simple for the purpose of ensuring that everyone understands. Okay, so we've defined the facts that we have. Now we need to build the actual graph. And how do we do that? I'm not gonna tell you how to build the graph before actually speaking about two types of graphs here. We have an undirected graph and directed graph. So for those of you that aren't familiar, an undirected graph usually looks like that, like we don't have arrows directed among them, and a directed graph usually have arrows, let's say, or stuff connecting one another. Okay, so this is just a mini diagram for you guys to check. Now, basically, what we have here is we're gonna be creating a directed graph. I would like to pause here for a sec and ask you guys, why did we choose to work with directed graphs? Feel free to drop in your answer in the YouTube chat box, even if it was, don't be shy, just feel free to drop in your answer. Take a while and think, why did we choose to work with directed graphs? Okay, we have some answers already from Ali, Hassan as well. More easily to be, okay, yes, Hassan, that is correct. The direction presents the relationship. That is correct. Also, good job, Ali, yes. Yeah, that is correct. So what we're doing here is we're building a directed graph because usually in a directed graph, we have a clear direction. And what do I mean by clear direction? I've said that Alice has a disease which is flu. So it's the sequence, it's the relationship. Alice has flu. Alice has fever, I don't know what. Okay, so that is why we chose to work with directed graph. Now, we can also have undirected graph, by the way. But I chose to go with undirected graph example. But if we choose to go with the undirected graph, the connection would be both ways. So let's say, for example, Alice is friends with Bob. Or maybe I'm friends with Hassan, for example. Now, of course, we all know friendships aren't one-sided unless you had a toxic friend, which I believe many people attending us might struggle from, not sure. But if that's not the case, then usually if you're friends with someone, okay, for example, Alice is friends with Bob, then the relationship could go backward because Bob is friends with Alice as well. So you can work with directed and undirected graph depending on your context, depending on what you want to build, what you want to see. Okay, it doesn't matter, but we kept things simple. All right. Now, next up, what we're doing is we're actually adding edges from the triples. So this is a loop for those of you not familiar. And the loop here basically goes through each of the triples. And what are those triples? You remember them: the subject, the relationship, the object. And then it adds them as an edge to the graph. So all of those triples become an edge, and they get added as an edge. Okay? The subject becomes a node. In our case, it would be the source node because we are starting our sentence from there. Usually, while you're speaking English, you always start with a subject. I'm not going to say always because sometimes you might start with another word, but let's take, for example, here, we're starting from a subject: Alice, Bob, whatever. So this is our source node. And then we would have something called the target node, which is the object in this case. And the object in this case is flu, fever, COVID, etc. Okay? And we're not stopping here. We're also adding labels on them. So the label here is the relationship name to the edge so that we could visualize it better. You're gonna see in a bit how's that done. All right? Once again, if you're not familiar with Python, then don't worry about that. I can answer any questions and stuff like that. But for those following up with a Python background, I believe all is good so far. Let me see. Okay, amazing. I think it's all good. Feel free to drop in the chat box at any time. Okay. Now, finally, we built that. We did the nodes, the edges, etc. We labeled them. Now it's time to actually visualize the knowledge graph that we built. So how we're gonna do that? We're gonna start by basically creating a blank canvas using Matplotlib, okay? And the fig size here, as you can see, okay? It basically just sets how big our graph image will be. And here in this case, I'm taking it 10 by 6. You can edit the numbers or whatever size you guys want, okay? This is the canvas here, okay? And this is regarding the fig size. Now, next up, we have this. Now, if you take a look at it, you might say, oh, okay, that's complex. I don't understand what's happening here. Please explain that. So here we're actually just calculating the layout. It's basically where all the nodes will be placed on the screen. And we're using Spring Layout. If you hover over it, you can just read a bit about it. And it actually spreads the nodes like magnets, okay? Like, as you can see, we spreaded the nodes as magnets, and like it seems like they're repelling each other somehow. And this way you can see them clearly because we don't want them crushed together. Obviously, we need to read what's actually written inside those nodes or what's actually labeled on the edges, right? Okay, now next up, we're just plotting it and drawing it and stuff like that, setting the font size, the color, etc. But regarding the seed 42, it's just to ensure that our layout is consistent every time we try to run it. Because if we don't set that, the graph would basically dance around randomly on every run, okay? And here we're actually drawing it. So we're drawing the actual graph. I believe Sarah dove into those with you, but I'm just gonna go over them real quick. So we have the with labels equals true. It basically just shows the names on the nodes, okay? And we also have the node color, which is sky blue. You can edit the color at any point. And we have the node size and the font size, just to ensure that we're actually seeing those. And we also have the edge color, which is this, as you can see. And yeah, it basically just gives it a neutral color so that you can see, you can edit the color as well. And finally, we're grabbing all of the relationship labels like the symptoms, um, has disease, etc. So we can draw them next to the arrows here on the labels thing, okay? And then finally, this is the part where we actually draw those relationships in red. So when you look at the graph, you won't just like see the nodes, as you can see. You will actually see what's written like Alice has flu, Bob has COVID, stuff like that. And you can format it even further. This is a bit condensed. You can just format it better in order to like see those properly. So I encourage you to just fiddle a bit with it. And this is our graph. We managed to build a mini medical knowledge graph. It could be in any context. And see how easy it is to actually fiddle a bit with graphs. Like, it's really nothing too complex. Anyone can actually build a knowledge graph. And we will actually be having a mini competition where you will get to build your own knowledge graph, post it on LinkedIn, and tag us and tag Dr. Amar. Now, I will be taking Q&A, and then we'll be talking a bit about the project, because I believe many of you joined to actually know more about the project. Okay. If there are any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. Let me see. Why are the two below with no edges? Hassan, I encourage you to fiddle with it. I actually left them like that. You can actually go and fiddle with them. This is what the competition is gonna be about. So you're gonna be actually diving into network hacks and stuff like that. So yeah. Now let us go over the project, and then let me take a Q&A at the end. Okay, so regarding the project, the rules are simple. Okay, first of all, you've been added into the community and stuff. So what you have to do is go and join the group project sync up, and please be respectful. Don't discuss any out of the topics, anything out of the topic. Don't bring politics or anything. Don't be disrespectful for one another. And I encourage you guys to start talking here on this group, getting to know each other. If you've joined the group project sync up, you probably read the description. So the description says to introduce yourself. Where are you joining from? What university major are you in? And what is the theme of the project that you want to dive into? Okay, so in order to work on the project, you have to join the group. And I would like to note that in order to receive a certificate, even if you attended 2 sessions but you did not participate in the project, then unfortunately we cannot give you a certificate, because it's a 2-week bootcamp, and attending just 2 sessions isn't enough. The purpose of this bootcamp is to help you get started, to get in the waters, get your hands dirty, build something while actually learning. So we've made it very flexible. You have several themes within AI to choose among. We have people joining from bioinformatics background, medical background, business background, and we know that those aren't really familiar with programming, so they can maybe choose to work on a project that's data science related, for example. Or for those of you that are joining from, let's say, computer science background, then they can work on something even far more advanced. And even for those of you that have like zero coding knowledge, you can work on building an innate agent or something like that. So we've made it really flexible, and we'd appreciate it, guys, if you actually you should, because it's really beneficial for you to participate in the project. And as mentioned, if you'd like to participate with the project, you'd have to attend the office hours session. And in order to dive into the theme of your interest, we have far more sessions the upcoming few days and the beginning of week 2. So I encourage you all to attend them all. Of course, get to know each other, but please be respectful. And then you have to choose a theme and form a team, and you have to submit a Google form that we will be sharing with you, including the full name of the members in the team name, the theme, your email addresses, your phone numbers, and that's pretty much it basically. And you will start building and attend office hours. So this is to ensure that we're offering you live Q&A and mentorship and stuff like that, because you will need that actually. Now, regarding the project teams, the project is of 2 stages. Stage 1 is building the AI model, and stage 2 is deploying the model or integrating it into a full software. I'll talk a bit more about that in a few. But as you can see, we have several project themes. So far, you guys dove into data science, machine learning, deep learning, graphs, okay? But we actually have more in the upcoming few days, and we're gonna be also diving into machine learning and deep learning again. So don't worry if it seemed too complex or not really hands-on. We're just taking it slow so everyone can just stay on track and such, okay? Those are the themes. Regarding the topic, you are free to choose the topic that you want, but it must be under that theme. More details will be sent on the group, obviously, but all of the projects fall underneath those themes. This is stage 1. Then stage 2, we will be having an MLOps session with someone joining us from Meta. It will be on Saturday. We will be sharing the time on the group very soon, but this is a session that you don't want to miss. And we're also going to be having a hands-on session, which is model deployment, how you can deploy any model. And we're also going to be having a session on how to wrap up your model in an API or something, as in to integrate it into your software, whether you chose to go with a mobile application or a software or whatever. Feel free, because I know some of you might have a background in mobile development, for example, Flutter, or I don't know what. Others might have background into web. So we've made the project really flexible, as mentioned. And there will be competition prizes for the competition, and it's honestly something you don't want to miss. We will be announcing it soon, but it is something that you don't want to miss. And now, the moment that you're all basically been waiting for. Pretty sure you all joined just to hear what's the giveaway about, or I don't know what. So yeah, pretty sure you're curious to know what's the giveaway about, what's the competition about, stuff like that. So basically, the challenge. Your challenge is the following. After this session, okay, what you have to do is the following. Pick any real-world data set, okay? Or you can even just build a dummy data set, make your own, okay? Then you have to turn it into a knowledge graph. And then you either experiment with NetworkX, and you saw how easy NetworkX is to experiment with, as you can see, okay? And also, you can use Neo4j. I must warn you, though, that Neo4j is a bit advanced somehow. So for those of you that aren't familiar with NoSQL or SQL, then maybe you might find it a bit complex. Maybe just choose to go with NetworkX, but I know Dr. Ammar already talked about Neo4j, so if you're curious to experiment a bit with it, then feel free. And then after building that, of course, you have to add a clear README file on a GitHub repo, post it on LinkedIn, and then post what you learned with full documentation. Okay, so just a meaningful LinkedIn caption and clear README file in the GitHub repo, and tag us, tag Code with Sarah, tag everyone, and feel free to tag me and Dr. Ammar's Muhanna's LinkedIn. We already shared his LinkedIn with you. Please just don't tag one person, tag us. And to ensure that you're actually growing your audience or benefiting or something, you can choose to caption your post in a way where, like, after the insightful sessions on day 3 of the AI bootcamp with etc., and then tag everyone, I've had the chance to work on building something, etc. Okay, so no need to caption it, I'm participating in a challenge, this is why I posted that. No, please, please don't do that. That would be really lame, and no recruiter would ever look at that. Okay, so just caption it as I told you. And tag us on LinkedIn. And the giveaway is actually gonna be 2. So you will have the chance to have a free one-on-one session with me, and also an exclusive chance to join Code with Sarah's team as an ambassador. You will join the team right away without an interview, without anything, if you complete that challenge, okay? And manage to find out what's wrong in the code. Why did the code draw the graphs in that way? So please don't use ChatGPT, even though I'm pretty sure that the majority of you are gonna use ChatGPT. Regardless, I will be able to actually know if the answer was GPT generated or not. So yeah. Figure out what's wrong, why is it showing it like that, and it's literally pretty easy. I'm not gonna be giving hints, but you've already seen that before, and you've already worked with that before, whether it was today or maybe on the first day. Who knows where the error might be, but do fiddle a bit and feel free to change the colors and stuff, okay? And as well as participate in the challenge while abiding by the rules, please, okay? Now, I'm gonna be taking questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I'm not sure if anyone is gonna be asking after this figure, but regardless, this is a famous character from the Minions movie. Pretty sure you're all familiar with. Feel free to ask anything. We should choose the project, or will you give us a list of topics? No, we will be giving you a list of themes. Those are the themes that are discussed in our bootcamp, okay? And you will have the freedom to choose any topic that falls underneath those themes. You can even mix and match, by the way. That would be really creative and smart. So yeah, the topic of project will be no, we won't be sending topics of the projects. You will be choosing that, forming a team and everything. An A10 concept. Okay, yeah. You will be learning about it on Saturday, Hassan. Okay, someone doesn't know how to use GitHub. Okay, then you can use Google Colab, but make sure to include proper documentation. You have the option to add cells as a code, and you also have the option to add cells as a text. So please document properly. I feel it's complicated and confusing. Since you're a CS student, then I encourage you to learn GitHub. We will actually be having a session on how to use GitHub during our bootcamp. It is not an obligatory session, by the way. How much time we have? You actually have till tomorrow. I will be announcing the details on the group. Should the dataset be huge? No. You can just use anything, any simple thing. Can you please rewrite the challenge instructions? Yes, Noor, we will be sharing everything. Okay. Uh, Thank you, Hassan. Yeah, indeed, the sticker is absolutely funny. I'm pretty sure that no one will be asking any dumb questions right now. I'm just joking. No question is ever dumb. On the contrary, feel free to ask anything. Yes, no, don't be scared. This is just a joke. I like to maintain a fun touch in the sessions. How much time we have for challenge and projects? Regarding the project, you have until July 25, okay? The final project of the entire bootcamp. And regarding the challenge, you have till tomorrow. I'll announce the time and details and everything on the group. Is it necessary to do the challenge? No, it's not necessary to do the challenge. You can choose whether you want to do it or not, but it is an opportunity that you don't want to miss. A bit about what we basically do. We actually have a team of 13 ambassadors, and they're all actually really amazing. They participate in in-person events, online events, and very soon they're gonna be hosting their own events at Code Visera. We're actually gonna be announcing the ambassador series very soon, so stay tuned for that. Yes, I will be sharing everything. Okay, that's it, folks. Hope you enjoyed the session. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I will be sharing it on the WhatsApp group as well. And I hope you enjoyed the session. Have a great evening, everyone. Okay, Amina. What if you don't come from a CS background? No problem. You can work with low code or no code tools. Don't worry about that. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the session. Looking forward for your challenge submissions. Have a great evening.